Why does your mind refuse to let go, even when your body is exhausted and the world around you is quiet? Ethan lay awake at 2:17 a.m., staring at the ceiling, his room still and silent, yet inside his head, a storm refused to rest, thoughts rushing in like waves that never reached the shore, replaying words he wished he never said, imagining futures that hadn't happened, questioning decisions that could no longer be changed, and no matter how hard he tried to push them away, they only returned stronger, louder, heavier. As if his own mind had turned against him, he would turn to his side, then to the other, pulling the blanket tighter, hoping sleep would come, but instead another thought appeared, then another, each one stacking on top of the last like invisible weight pressing down on his chest, making even a quiet night feel overwhelming. And in that moment, he whispered to himself, barely audible in the darkness, "Why can't I just stop thinking? Why can't I just be at peace?" But the more he asked, the further peace seemed to slip away, like trying to grab water with his bare hands. And without realizing it, Ethan had begun to believe something dangerous, that the suffering came from the thoughts themselves, not knowing that the truth, the one thing that could set him free, was something he had never questioned before. The next morning, nothing had changed. The sun rose gently through Ethan's window, casting a soft glow across his room. But his mind was already racing before his feet even touched the floor, the same thoughts waiting for him like they had never left. He brushed his teeth while replaying a conversation from days ago, wondering if he sounded foolish. He poured his coffee while imagining everything that could go wrong later that day. Even something as simple as a quiet breakfast felt heavy, like he was carrying something no one else could see. And as he stepped outside, the world moved normally. Cars passed, people walked their dogs, a neighbor waved with a smile, but Ethan barely noticed. His attention was trapped inside, tangled in a loop that never seemed to end. And the strange part was this: nothing around him was actually wrong. There was no danger, no crisis, no real problem in front of him. Yet the suffering felt real, almost physical, like a constant pressure that followed him everywhere. He began to wonder if this was just how life was supposed to feel, if everyone else was silently struggling the same way, or if there was something broken inside him that he could not fix. And the more he questioned it, the deeper he sank into it, until one quiet afternoon, while walking without any clear destination, tired of his own thoughts, he found himself somewhere he had never noticed before, a small path leading away from the noise of the streets, as if something, or someone, was quietly calling him forward. The path led Ethan away from the noise of the streets and into a quiet space where the air felt different, lighter somehow, as if even the wind moved more slowly there. And after walking for a few minutes, he heard something he had not noticed in a long time, the gentle sound of flowing water. He followed it until he reached a small river, no more than a few feet wide, its surface shimmering under the afternoon sun, moving steadily without effort, without resistance. And for a moment, Ethan simply stood there, watching, his thoughts still present but quieter, like distant echoes instead of loud voices. And then he noticed an old man sitting nearby on a smooth rock, his posture relaxed, his gaze resting softly on the river, as if he had nowhere else to be. The man turned slightly and smiled, not a forced smile, but one that felt calm and certain, as if he understood something Ethan did not. And without thinking, Ethan spoke. "I cannot stop my mind. It keeps going, over and over, and it is exhausting." The old man nodded gently, as if he had heard this many times before, and after a brief silence, he asked a question so simple that it almost felt strange. "Who is the one that cannot stop it?" Ethan frowned, caught off guard, because for the first time, instead of looking at his thoughts, he was being asked to look at something deeper, something he had never questioned before. The question lingered in the air, simple yet unsettling, and Ethan felt a strange discomfort rise within him, because he had never separated himself from his thoughts before. To him they were the same, inseparable, obvious. So he answered slowly, "I am the one." And the old man tilted his head slightly, his eyes calm, almost curious. "Are you the thoughts, or are you the one noticing them?" Ethan hesitated, his mind searching for an answer but finding only more confusion. Because if he was the thoughts, why could he observe them? And if he was not, then who was he? The old man did not rush to explain. Instead, he gently pointed toward the river, its water continuing to flow without pause, and said nothing, leaving Ethan alone with the question. And for the first time, Ethan did not try to fight his thoughts. He simply watched them, just like the river, one appearing, then passing, followed by another, and something subtle began to shift, not in the thoughts themselves, but in the way he saw them, as if a small space had opened between him and the noise inside his mind, a space he had never noticed before. The old man finally spoke again, his voice calm and steady, as if he were describing something obvious, not something hidden. He said, "Do you see how the river moves? It does not try to stop itself. It does not hold on to any drop, and yet it never becomes heavy." Ethan kept his eyes on the water, watching how each current passed without resistance, and the old man continued, "Your mind is doing the same thing. Thoughts come and go. That is their nature, but suffering begins when you try to hold onto one, when you grab it, replay it, and carry it with you." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, because he recognized it instantly. Every memory he held onto, every worry he replayed, every moment he refused to release. The old man gently picked up a small cup, dipped it into the river, and held it out. "Now imagine you try to keep this water forever," he said. "The longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. Not because the water changed, but because you refuse to let it go." Ethan looked at the cup, then back at the river, and for the first time, he began to understand that maybe the problem was never the thoughts themselves, but what he was doing with them. The realization did not come as a loud breakthrough, but as something quiet and undeniable, like a truth that had always been there waiting to be seen. Ethan sat still, feeling the weight of his own habits, how he would pick up a single thought and carry it for hours, sometimes days, turning it over again and again as if it would finally change. But it never did. It only grew heavier, and for the first time he asked himself, what if I do not hold it? What if I just let it pass? Just like the river, another thought appeared, a familiar one, something from earlier that morning, but instead of grabbing it, instead of following it, he simply noticed it and let it move on. And then another came, and he did the same, watching without reacting, allowing without resisting, and something unexpected happened. The thoughts did not disappear, but they no longer trapped him. They moved through him instead of pulling him in, like clouds drifting across an open sky. And in that small shift, Ethan felt a lightness he had not felt in a long time, not because his mind was empty, but because for the first time, he was not trying to control it. The old man watched quietly as Ethan sat beside the river, no longer restless, no longer chasing every thought that passed through his mind. And after a while he spoke again, not to teach, but to reveal what was already unfolding. He said, "The mind was never your enemy. It only follows its nature, just like the river flows. But you believed every thought was yours to carry, and that belief became your burden." Ethan listened, feeling the truth settle within him, because now he could see it clearly. Every moment of suffering had come from holding on, from identifying with every passing thought as if it defined him. And the old man gently added, "You are not the river, and you are not the water, you are the one who sees it. And when you remember this, the river can flow freely without drowning you." Ethan looked at the water again, the movement unchanged, yet his experience of it completely different. And for the first time, he felt a quiet distance from the noise in his mind, not a separation of force, but a natural space, like standing on the shore instead of being swept away. And in that space, something new began to emerge, not effort, not control, but a calm awareness that did not need to fight anything at all. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light across the river, Ethan remained seated, no longer searching for answers, no longer trying to fix anything inside his mind. And in that stillness, he noticed something he had never truly felt before, a quiet sense of ease that did not depend on his thoughts changing, a peace that existed even while thoughts continued to come and go. And it surprised him, because his mind was still active, still producing memories, ideas, and worries, yet none of them seemed to have the same weight. They passed through like distant sounds instead of overwhelming noise. And the old man spoke softly, almost as if reminding him of something simple. Peace is not found by stopping the mind. It is found when you stop holding it. Ethan took a slow breath, feeling the air move in and out, natural and effortless, just like the river beside him. and for the first time, he understood that freedom was not about controlling what appeared in his mind, but about no longer being controlled by it. And in that quiet moment, as the river continued to flow exactly as it always had, Ethan realized that nothing outside had changed, yet everything inside felt different. As Ethan finally stood up to leave, the river still flowing behind him, he noticed something subtle but profound. His mind had not become silent. Thoughts were still there, rising and falling like they always had, yet they no longer felt like chains. They felt distant, almost harmless, like clouds passing through a wide, open sky. And as he walked back toward the path that once felt heavy, each step now felt lighter, not because his life had suddenly changed, but because he was no longer carrying every thought with him. The old man's voice echoed softly in his memory, not as instruction, but as truth. You were never meant to stop the river, only to stop holding it. And Ethan realized that what he had been searching for all along was not control, not silence, but understanding. The simple awareness that he was not the noise in his mind, but the space in which it appeared. And as the sounds of the world slowly returned around him, the wind, the distant voices, the rhythm of his own footsteps, he felt a quiet peace that did not depend on anything at all. And in that stillness, a deeper question remained. If you are not your thoughts, then who have you been all this time?